Hello everyone, Crystal Kitsune here with not a Crystal and Pookie show, but Pookie was here anyway because I'm filming 2 episodes today. Um, but this isn't the Crystal and Spooky show. This is the thing that I mentioned that I was going to do that didn't get done because I had some family problems. Nothing you need to worry about, everything's fine. I'm in a new location. I moved into the shed that we have that we doubled as a pool room. I'm sitting the laptop on the pool table, and what you see behind me is a rug that's on the wall, has wolves on it. So I figured this would be a whole lot easier to record in, since it's just a basic backdrop. I don't have to keep taping up the sheet or anything in the living room. So it's an easier location, and this episode is going to be Crystal's Almost Book Club. Now, Almost Book Club it means that I'm going to show you books that I've read or haven't read yet, and you can either read along or leave your comments about what you thought of the book if you read it already. Most of the books that I'm going to show you are ones that I've read personally, and I like, myself as a reader, and suggest them to you. You don't have to, by any means, read them yourself. It's just a suggestion. What I'll do is I'll take the book that I have. I'll show you the cover of the version I have, because there's a bunch of different versions, I'm sure. Well, in some instances, and read the synopsis on the back, and tell you a little bit about how I liked it, and so on and so forth. So I brought two different. Well, technically there's 4 books here, but one is a series. It's not Harry Potter, don't worry, or Lord of the Rings or anything. I won't really do those kind of books because almost everybody's read these books, so I'll be doing basically books that I read either as a child, because this first one is a children's book, or ones that I read as a young adult, or whatever. And it won't be Harry Potter, it won't be Lord of the Rings, it won't be Star Wars or Star Trek or anything like that. It's just going to be books that I personally read as a child, and some books are going to be ones that I wanted to read but haven't yet. And then I'll show you the book that I chose for the week or whatever, and I'll read it within a week, hopefully, and then tell you my thoughts about it. You can either come and or read the book with me and leave comments about what you thought of the book. Either way, it's totally up to you what you think about the book and if you read it or not. It's just something that I thought would be interesting to do because I love to read, and I honestly don't do it enough. I really wish I did read more. Because a lot of people, they get stuck on like internet and movies or YouTube or whatever. I mean, not slamming YouTube in any way. I'm just saying that books and stuff, even though you can put them on your laptop or you can put them on your e-readers or whatever, a good solid book with actual pages is so lost now, and it's kind of sad that everybody reads electronically most of the time. Um, but anyway, I'm gonna get this started. I'm gonna start with this book here. Not many people know about this book. Some of you might if you're a fan of this author. The book is called moving into the camera. New webcam, folks. I'm not quite used to it. It's called A Little Princess. And if you know of this author here, Frances, I'm gonna butcher her name, Frances Hodgson Burnett. Um, if the name sounds familiar to you, it's because she also did A Secret Garden. And when I read The Secret Garden, it was one of my favorite books growing up. I love The Secret Garden. And I saw a Hallmark version of the movie, which had a couple actors in it that I've seen in other movies. The one that stands out is the character who plays the boy Dickon. If you've read the book, you know who the characters are. Dickon is played by the same kid who did Bastian Bucks in The Neverending Story, if you've ever seen that. But he's a little bit older. But either way, I liked that movie, and it was something that I remember growing up reading and watching. So when I found out that she did this other movie, I actually didn't really know. I saw this, I think it was a Disney version of A Little Princess, and I really liked that one too. And I'm like, well, they seem kind of similar, but then it turns out that they're done by the same author, so um, that's why they're similar. Um, I'll read the synopsis on the back, and I don't think you can read that because it's kind of blurry. But I'll read the synopsis on the back, and then I will sort of give you my take on the story. So this is the synopsis on the back. I don't know if it changes from book to book or if it's just the same one for everyone. As 10-year-old Sarah Crewe wasn't really a princess, but she seemed like one when she first arrived at Miss Minchin's London boarding school. Her father had given her all sorts of beautiful clothes before he had returned to India, as well as a pony, a French maid, and a wonderful doll named Emily. Sarah wasn't spoiled, though almost everyone wanted to be her friend. Suddenly a terrible misfortune left Sarah penniless, and she thought forgotten. She had to wear old rags, live in a dingy attic, and work for her living. It wasn't a very happy life for a young girl. Then mysterious changes began, showing Sarah that she had never really been alone. And then on the bottom it says that Frances Hudson Burnett is also the author of The Secret Garden, so it tells you right there. It's recommended for like ages 9 and up. But I'm like 30 years old and I still enjoy this book. Um, Basically for me, like I said, I started reading this. I got this from the thrift store, believe it or not, for like $2 or something. And I never actually read the book. I mean, I have read this now, but I haven't actually read the book. After I saw the movie and I was like, this seems kind of similar to The Secret Garden because they were both young girls who like grew up in India and then were shipped to somewhere else for some reason, and then like the parents die or supposedly die, and then she ends up, they both end up um, living in England or whatever. And so I was like, well, this is awfully similar to The Secret Garden. And then I found out it was the same author. So yeah, they're going to be the similar in context. Um, but either way, for me, it's like I really like the story because it's like no matter what happened to her, she was always like, well, but she wasn't like in the sense that like I'm better than you. She was always like, well, I'm a princess and you can be a princess. Everybody can be princesses as long as they're loved and have friends and everything like that. And even if you don't have friends, it's like you can make like do with what you have and like not make your own friends. I mean, she made a friend with a mouse. I mean, I'm kind of like contexting both the movie and the book. In the movie, she made friends with a mouse, and I think in the book she did too. Um, I forgot what his name was, but they kind of touched on it a little bit in the movie, but I think it was more prevalent in the book. But she made a friend with a mouse. One of the other little servant girls, who was a colored African American child, she made friends with her, and I mean, you can find friends no matter where you go, and she didn't let her poverty like get her down. For some part of the story, she did kind of like have a little sense of doubt, like I'm gonna be all alone. My father's dead. I don't have anybody in the world. But then she slowly came to realize that, oh, I've got friends. I have a mouse friend, and I have the little girl who like, is in the attic with me, who's also my friend. And then later on, and I'm not gonna spoil the book if you haven't read it yet. Um, but I would, even though if you're older or even younger, I would suggest reading the book. It's a cute little book. If you like The Secret Garden and you haven't seen this one or read this one before, you should read this one. It's a cute little story. It probably won't take you very long if you're like me and you get into a book and you just start reading and you're reading and reading and reading, and the next thing you know, it's done. And I'm like, where'd the book go? I do that a lot with like a lot of stories that thicker books that I would read, and I like get really into the story, and like I would kind of like know I'm on chapter 5, and then I just keep reading, and the next thing I know I'm like on chapter 10. It just works that way. But either way, yeah, I think in this book though, the little maid child is actually white, but in the movie they made her African American because it works that way or whatever. It makes it seem, I don't know, like slave children were still used back in that time. So, um, even though it's not right, slavery is not good. She wasn't really a slave. She was just more of a indentured servant, I guess you could call it. But either way, this book I would recommend. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. This is not me throwing this, shoving this book down your throat. It's just a recommendation. If you want to read it, you can read it. If you don't, it's it's called A Little Princess, Frances Hodgson Burnett. I keep butchering her name, but that's my version of it. I've seen other versions of this book, so it's just depends on who is making it, because this one's done by Harper Trophy, and it was made up in 1963. So this is a 1963 edition of this book. So it's an older book. And that's not the end. I bet you're thinking, I was like, oh, phew, she's done. No, I'm not done. I got another series here. It's kind of hard to explain. This author, I call it author. She's a female author. Her name is Mercedes Lackey. And every time I mention this to somebody, they're all like, who? It's like, who is this person? I have no idea how I found this person, but I'm glad I did, because I collect basically all of her books. I have almost all of them, with a few missing here and there. But what's good about this person is she wrote this extensive set of series. There's a lot of books. She started in the late 80s, I think. Let me see when this one's done. 1994. But no, she actually started other books, but in the later years. But this author started this series. Well, this is the first of the three. There's much more. I'm not explaining myself well. This is the book that I'm holding. It's called The Black Griffin, and it's really blurry. It's called The Black Griffin by Mercedes Lackey, and Larry Dixon did the illustrations and stuff. Well, not this particular one, but the ones that are inside. There. The ones inside. He did these ones. What she did is all of the books that she's done for this world commingle with each other. This is the first of the it's called the Mage Wars, and this is, I call it the Griffin series because it's the Black Griffin, the White Griffin, and the Silver Griffin, and they all, this is the first one, and this is the founding of the world, or I don't want to say world, but founding of Valdemar, which is the world essentially in which all these characters live in, and this is the founding of Valdemar, and the rest of all the books that she has are set in the same universe. And some books mention other people from other books, but it's not necessarily essential that you read in any particular order. So if you don't have, for these ones here, it is essential to read them in order because this is the trilogy. But for any of the other trilogies, it's not necessarily essential that you read them in any particular order. If you go in here, it shows a list of, put them right in the, this is a list of all the books that she's done. It starts with this series, and then there's the Heralds of Valdemar, which is Arrows of the Queen, Arrows Flight, Arrows Fall, and then so on and so forth. And these are in the order of the history, and there's usually a map or something in here. Yeah, there's a map or a timeline that shows the books in order. Like I said, you don't have to necessarily read them in order. The Black Griffin and the White Griffin and the Silver Griffin are prehistory, before the founding of the Valdemar, and then you have Magic's Pawn, Magic's Promise, Magic's Price, and then it goes on into years and years and years into the future after the founding, and all the rest of the books are on this side, which is after the founding, and it shows where they are in order of when they were created. But in this particular story, like I said, this one is the one next in the series, and then this one, which is the next one. But I'm just going to read the back of this one, because once you read the first one, you'll want to read the second one and the third one. I'll read the back. It says, Skander Don Rashke is everything a griffin should be. With gleaming ebony feathers, majestic wingspan, keen mage sight, and a sharp intelligence, he is the fulfillment of all that is mage of that all the mage. I'm butchering this. I'm sorry. Is the fulfillment of all that the Mage of Silence, the human sorcerer called Urtho, intended to achieve when he created these magical beings to be his champions, the defenders of his realm, a verdant plan long coveted by the evil mage Ma'ar. That's a long sentence, and seemed to run on to me. And now, as Ma'ar is once again preparing to advance on Urtho's keep, this time with a huge force spearheaded by magical constructs of his own, Skander Don is sent to spy across enemy lines, cloaked in the protection of Urtho's powerful spell of silence. As days pass and Skander Don doesn't return, all in Urtho's camp wait anxiously, but there is one among them for whom the possible loss of this great bird will be more than just a major military defeat. Amberdrake, a healer of body, mind, and spirit, whose talents are as essential to the army as those of any general, waits on the landing strip with anguish in his heart, for Amberdrake has come to value the vain cocksure and brave Skander Don as his closest friend and comrade, and now fears that his prince of griffins will never return. And they're thick, but don't let that deter you from reading them. They're very well written stories. When I was writing as a teenager, I was always like, I wish that my books were any, close to this. My stories were really, I wasn't really a good writer, so most of my stories fell flat. I even made like a fourth in a series to another set of these books that I read. But if you want to read The Founding of Valdemar, which will get you started in this world of Mercedes Lackey, then you start with The Black Griffin. And it's a very good book. I seem biased. You may seem biased because she's one of my favorite authors. She does more than just the Valdemar books. She has a couple of like bardic voices books, and she also did some elemental ones later on. So she's a writer and she also does science fiction stuff too. So if you're into science fiction and not just fantasy, look up this author, and she's got like a bunch of different stuff that I'm sure you could probably find. Um, so look at your library or bookstore. I got this particular one at Barnes & Noble, and I think I got this one too because I didn't actually have them. I was trying to collect them from like thrift stores and stuff, but then finally I just hunkered down and was like, okay, I'm gonna get them from the store. And these are like brand spanking new. So Black Griffin goes first, and then the White Griffin goes second, and that's Skander Don, but something happens to him to where he goes from black to white. And then the last one is a little loved. I got this from a bookstore, a different, like a mom pop kind of collectible bookstore thing, and that's the Silver Griffin. I have also this one in hardback, but I figured I'd get it in paperback because it's a lot easier to read than doing it in hardback. But this is actually one of Skander Don's kids. This is not Skander Don. It's one of his kids, and that's the daughter of Amberdrake and whoever he gets with in the first two books. So that's Crystal's Almost Book Club. If you have any suggestions of books to read, then leave them down in the comments below. If you have read these books that I just talked about, and you want to give your take about how you enjoyed them, leave a comment below. Otherwise, and Pookers just flew off, so midway when I grabbed all the books at once, and she flew off. So she's over there. This is not the Crystal and Pookie show anyway, so she doesn't need to be here, but she was here for most of it. So this is my new area and new webcam, so hopefully the capture is a whole lot more smoother and the microphone that's on it is better. We will see when I go to upload this or check it out. If you have any any suggestions of books to read, leave them below. Give this thing a like if you like it or not. It doesn't really matter to me. Tell your friends, and look forward to hopefully another episode of Crystal's Almost Book Club. And if I get good response about it, or if I just feel like doing it anyway, I will post another video next week sometime, hopefully. I'll see you next time. See you later, everybody.